welcome to episode 38 of the Impact Code podcast. I am thrilled to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much for listening, for watching, for subscribing, and for sharing with your communities. We really do appreciate it, and we're looking forward to today's episode as well as what we've got coming up in the future as well. I am thrilled today to be joined by none other than Jayson George. Jayson is an associate at Bowman's currently. He's also the founder of Aspiration Inspiration, which we'll talk about a little bit in today's episode. He's the chairperson of Change Agents South Africa. He is an admitted attorney into the High Court of South Africa, and he's a dynamic young leader in South Africa that you should remember after today's episode for sure. Jayson, it's a pleasure to have you on the Impact Code podcast. Welcome. Thank you so much. How are you doing this morning?
How's it, Dafa? Hi to the viewers, the listeners. Thank you so much for having me. Sure, that introduction, certainly placed me, up there, so I'll have to, no pressure to deliver in this conversation, but thanks so much for having me here today.
That's a pleasure, man. It's all truth. It's all truth. Jay, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, man. I think, I obviously know you quite well, but, maybe some of our listeners do also know you quite well. But, tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of where you were born as well as where you grew up.
Sure. So I was born in Tafels of Mitchells Plain. I'm from Tafels of Mitchells Plain. So to those of us who don't know, Mitchells Plain is part of the Cape Flats, Cape Town. It's a notorious area known for, drug abuse, violence, gang violence, that type of thing. I mean, obviously there are good things that can come out of community, and there's a very amongst the people that live there, people are very closely knit, and people are supportive of one another. Obviously there are a lot of bad elements in the community, but there are always people looking out for people with potential. So I've been grateful to grow up over there with both my parents, and they kind of raised me with an iron fist, so they were very strict. They still are very strict, although they become a bit more lenient with the grandchildren. But I mean, growing up in Mitchells Plain, with both parents that are unemployed, 4 siblings, it was a tough experience, but I mean, experiences like that builds character. I'm a boy from Mitchells Plain, Tafels of Mitchells Plain, and we can chat a bit more about where I am today.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for that context, and really appreciate you coming on to the show. It's really an honor to have you here, and I'm sure for our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. So, for as long as I've known you, I've known that you like coffee. Maybe like is a bit too, it's a bit of an understatement. I've got my cup here.
I share with me.
I've got a simple cappuccino here in this cup, but are there any special blends that we should try at the moment? I think.
Yeah. I love coffee. I absolutely love coffee. I mean, since I've been at university, since we've been together at university, I've always loved coffee. I'm not too much in the know of like the blends and how they are made, but I certainly, I take a lot of interest in how I make my coffee, where I buy my coffee, how it's roasted, and blends is a very interesting one, because blends, it's very difficult to find a nice blends, because they can come from all over the world. They can come from, there are a lot of good coffee being grown in Africa. So I love me, some Kenyan blends. I love that. Ethiopian coffee, it's amazing. And then some of your Central American coffees, Costa Rica, Guatemala, those kinds of blends are also nice. Anything grown at a high altitude. These are questions you should ask when you go and buy your coffee at a coffee roaster. Very, very nice. And then, I mean, in the morning, there are different coffees with different times of the day. In the morning, I appreciate a nice dark roast, full-bodied coffee that's very, very spicy, very dark, something like a kicker, even if it does not have high caffeine, because it might be full-bodied, it might be strong coffee, but it might not have, you know, the highest levels of caffeine in. But in the morning, you know, anything that can give you that boost, and then during the day, you don't want something that's going to keep you up at night. So you want to get more to your medium roast, your lighter coffees. You know, I think just as a top tip, you know, when you buy coffee, check on the side of the packaging to see the rating. Some of them are rated out of 10, some of them are rated out of 12, some 13, you know. So the higher you go up, obviously, the stronger your coffee, the more spicier, the spicier your coffee. So just, you know, but I love me in the morning. I love me a strong cup of coffee. I mean, although I prefer milky coffee, you know, I like to make it stronger. And then towards the end of the day, you know, getting to more relaxed, you know, more, you know, less strong of a coffee. But yeah, as I say, you know, blends are, you know, it's a wide variety.
Tricky business. I've made a note, you know, here that next time you come onto the podcast, I should add coffee connoisseur to your intro.
Not quite there.
I left that one out. I'll include it.
Tougher. You undersold me here, bro.
Sorry, Jayson. We might have to just re-record this. Thanks, Jay. I think, you know, I think it's quite interesting. I've had lots of different blends myself, and you know, I think it's once you find your blend, you really, you know, it really does wonders.
Yeah, you know quickly. You'll know quickly. This one.
You'll know. Quite right. So I want us to talk about driving performance early on in your career, and I think this is something which, you know, does represent you and what you've done so far in your young life so far. But I guess let's start at the beginning, right? So you did a straight LLB, and that's actually quite interesting because, you know, a lot of people might go a slightly different route, but I'm quite curious, you know, as to your sort of specificity in that regard. Why did you decide to do a straight LLB?
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's always been a dream of mine to be a lawyer. You know, ever since I was a child, I wanted to be a lawyer. And for some people, that might be like, how did you know what law was all about? I didn't know what law was all about. I certainly knew that I didn't want to be a policeman. You know, growing up on the Cape Flats, you would have seen a lot of police action, and you know, we had a personal family matter, you know, that involved the police and involved the cells and stuff like that. And so that, you know, sparked my curiosity. And so, you know, throughout primary school, throughout high school, this is something I always pursued, I always worked towards. And I knew I had to work hard because of the, you know, the people I surrounded myself with that, you know, guided me along the way. But, you know, the simple reason for going straight into LLB is because, I mean, I wasn't too much aware of the other options. And to me, I wanted to get the qualification as quickly as possible and start living my dream, you know. So that LLB was going to be the quickest way to get there, the most daunting way, and certainly, you know, not an easy way, getting straight out of high school into an LLB, you know, studying law, then straight out of law school into practice. You know, it was very streamlined. So it wasn't the easiest feat, but, you know, my mindset was always on, I wanted to live that dream. I wanted to achieve my goal. And that was what I was going to do. Wasn't too aware of the other routes, you know, until I actually got to law school. I'm like, could have done a BA LLB, could have done a BCom LLB, but no regrets.
Yeah, I think it's quite inspiring, you know, in terms of your determination and your convictions within that. I think there's a lot to be learned from that. I remember when I think I was 16, I briefly had a period in my life where I wanted to be a lawyer. I think I'd watched a lot of Suits. So I thought
drop out, bro. Come on.
But look, I think the thing which scared me off, to be honest, was the fact that you guys read a lot. Like, there's a lot of reading, and I was like, I don't know about that. No.
Yeah, dude. No, I mean, if you're not a lover, you know, of reading, then it's not necessarily, you know, you won't have the best of careers.
It's gonna be a long career. It's gonna be a long career. No, you're quite right. But I have a lot of respect, you know, for what you've done so far, and Yeah, you've done incredibly well since coming out of university. I'm quite curious, what are 3 lessons that you've learned in your transition coming into the workplace?
Yeah. I mean, just tie to that point and just take a step back, coming from a place like Mitchell's Plain, with a family that did not necessarily inculcate the culture of learning or reading. My parents were very religious, and so that was, the kind of reading that we would have done. That was where a lot of the lessons were from, to be disciplined and that type of thing. But I think it was very difficult to transition into the working environment, as someone who didn't grow up reading any kinds of books, apart from studying for tests and stuff at school. So I think, transitioning into the workplace after transitioning into law school and then into the workplace was quite a steep jump. And it can be for anyone, I'm not saying mine is a bit peculiar case, but I think some of the lessons that I've learned, it's the important. No one's going to stand behind you to do your work. Discipline is very, very important.
Quite.
And I think we must while we are at school, while we are at university, speaking to that part of our audience, we need to really try and develop those skills there at university. Delivering things when it's due, on deadlines, not trying to push boundaries and stuff. Because the workplace, some of our, the clients can be quite cutthroat and they need stuff to be done at a particular time. So you need to be disciplined. You need to be manage your time, carefully so that you can deliver on time. And I mean, one of the other things that I've learned along the way was also that people are very important. We need people. We need people to assist us, to train us. We need people, along the way that will help us in our journey to achieve our goals, because no man's an island. Yes, you find yourself in a competitive environment, but you can compete healthily, and help one another, because you have a common goal. Once you're in that environment, once you're at a firm, such as Bowman's, for example, we all have a common goal, towards the success of the firm, to deliver, excellent work to clients. So I think it's about, making use of your available resources, making use of other people, relying on them where it's not your expertise, because you quite frankly don't know everything. So that's what I've also learned. And I think one of the last few things, that I've realized, and I've realized it a while back, but I've realized it even more now. And Prof. Kelly, would have mentioned this as well. But it's not about how you start. It's not about where you come from. It's about where you're headed, where you're going, how you finish. That's very important, because I mean, never in I wouldn't say in a million years, but I would have never thought that I would have made it thus far at 26 years old. Being an associate at a firm like Bowman's, being able to, I mean, I don't want to speak about the stuff that I have, but the stuff's not really important. But just where I find myself now, you just have to realize that it takes time. The journey takes time, but it's always not about where you start. It's not about where you come from. It's about where you're going, where you finish, where you end up. So, I think those are some of the core lessons that I've learned along the way. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think I love the point that you made about discipline. It's incredibly important. I think it's that discipline and consistency of that discipline as well. And the point I think you also made about needing people. That you can't become an island. You can't do it alone. There's always something you can learn from anybody. It's a really, really valuable point. And I think you definitely, and I guess segueing into that, I'm quite curious. Do you have mentors yourself? Because those are also people, I guess, who can really add value into your life if you have them. And would you suggest if that young professionals coming into the workplace should get mentors? And I guess juxtaposing to that, to make it a really loaded question, is how has it helped you to have a mentor or mentors in your corporate career thus far?
Yeah. Certainly a very, very loaded question.
Yeah.
And I think a very important one, because I think a lot of young people, we have ideas, we are very creative, we are very ambitious, and eager to learn. But I think sometimes we just need that guide, to give us a guide in the right direction. And I think mentorship is very, very important it has been very important for my journey, certainly. I have quite a few. I find myself mentors in every sphere of my life that I enter into, whether I find myself at church, whether I find myself at work, whether I find myself, if I find myself at university, just generally having a life coach, someone that you can just, bounce ideas off, very, very important, and that can give you, share their experiences with you. So yeah, I mean, there are a few people in my life. Mr. Andrew Koopman is one of the people that has really guided me along the way into being, the person that I am today. Exposed me to law from a young age, taking me to job shadowing, to career days, to see what these people do, to get a feel for what law is about. And I think that's important. You might want to study something, and then you get 3-4 years into your degree, and then you realize, hey, this is actually not for you. So it's very important to have someone that can maybe before the time guide you and give you a few tips along the way. Andrew Koopman is the founder of our study group in our community. It's a community-based organization that helps kids from grades 4 to 12 with their schoolwork, and then as the group also consists of mentors or peer educators that will assist these kids, and mentors that will guide them along the way. And he's sort of been that person for me along this journey, and also my general life coach, if you want to call it that. Then I also have people in the firm, people that have trained me. I know Anne McAllister, one of people at Bowman's. She took me under wing. The firm has given her the how can I say, she's been placed to kind of nurture me in my journey as an attorney. And then also people in my teams that I've been in various teams at the firm, and people that I could look up to, that nurtured me and trained me along the way as a professional. So yeah, I've certainly had to rely on people. At church we have our preachers or evangelists, and people that we, whether it's elderships, people that we can look up to and learn from them, because I mean, spirituality is very important to me. So I've had people even in that sphere of my life that I could look up to and ask for guidance along the way. So yeah, for young people, quintessential that we get mentors, and we must get the concept of mentorship right as well. It's not someone that's going to make things a bit easy, like make life easy for you. It's not someone that's gonna walk the journey for you, but it's more someone that can show you the way, that can guide you along the way in that journey, that can show you the how can I say, the pitfalls along the journey, and that would maybe make you preempt certain things. So I think it's our duty as mentees to reach out to those people, and not the other way around, where we just expect them, to reach out to us. So I think we need to get that relationship right as well. But very, very important concept, and I advise any person, young or old, to have someone that they can look to for advice, because as I say, no man's an island. We need people to get where we want to be. So yeah.
Some really, I think, important points that you've raised there on that. I think it's incredibly important to have those people that can give you that advice. And I think an additional thing which I would say is we shouldn't expect mentors to tell us what to do. You know what I mean? If it's like you're at a crossroads, you don't expect someone to tell you go left. like they'll just add a bit more context, to the decisions that you have. and
Exactly.
potential outcomes or consequences thereof,
Yeah.
potential benefits of different decisions. So I think it is. I'm a big advocate for mentorship, and I've seen it play a role in my life as well. And I can only echo the wise words that you've shared on that. And I think it's quite inspirational what you've spoken about in terms of the role that it's played in your life. I think it also takes an incredible amount of humility on your part to be able to listen as well to your mentors. So don't forget that either. Tell us, finally, and not least, definitely not least, but tell us a little bit about Aspiration Inspiration. I've watched a lot of your episodes, and I find it incredibly inspiring. Tell us a little bit about the project, where it started, why it started, and as well as for our listeners, how can they find out a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I mean, I run a platform called Aspiration Inspiration. With the slogan "Aspire to Inspire before we expire." All about inspiring young people, particularly young people from the Cape Flats, to dream and to pursue their dreams relentlessly. Because there are other people that have done it already. Despite the circumstances that they are from. So what I do, I basically started during COVID. Once COVID, about 2 years ago now. I sat in my room before lockdown. I saw everyone was now trying to find different things to do, and at the time, it was also I was speaking to some people about my journey, and I realized that there are a lot of other people out there that have done similar things, that have achieved greater things, and we should share more of these stories. There's a lot of negativity about the Cape Flats in the media.
Yeah.
So I wanted to counter that narrative. I wanted to put something out there that would be good, so that people can, when people ask what good can come from the Cape Flats, they can sort of just, put something into Google, or come across one of these podcasts, with some of these people. So I interview people from the Cape Flats. It's been from the Cape Flats for the last while. I know people have been asking me to go cast the net a bit wider. So we have to make decisions about that. But we interview people from the Cape Flats, people that grew up on the Cape Flats, that have gone on to achieve, big things in their lives, that have gone on to achieve something positive, or that's doing something positive with their lives. The expectation normally is for a young person from the Cape Flats to end up either in, the cells, or in a gang, or dead before their 21st. These are realities faced on the Cape Flats. And I wanted to paint a different picture, that there are people that can achieve, despite their circumstances. I've spoken to the likes of Trevor Manuel. I've spoken to Emo Adams, Joanne Strauss, JP Dumini. There are a lot of people that I've chatted to, and the podcast can be found on Facebook, Aspiration Inspiration. You can also check us out on YouTube at Aspiration Inspiration. And yeah, I just then post snippets on Instagram, on my personal account, and on the Aspiration Inspiration Instagram account, which is not that active, but you can find a summary, a snippet there of what we've done. But yeah, we're basically all over, on all social media platforms. And yeah, that's what we do. So it's a platform to inspire, and a platform to show that there are good things that can come from the Cape Flats. Yeah,
it's an incredible platform and an incredible idea, and quite inspiring. I love the phrase "aspire to inspire before we expire." Right?
That's
it's a lovely phrase, and a lovely catchy phrase.
I mean, it isn't. I must say, it's not my own. It's a quote from Eugene Bell Jr.
Okay.
But really, it really summarizes what we're trying to achieve. We have a limited time on this earth, so we should use it. Like you're using Impact Code to inspire other people. Use our time to inspire other people, and it should always be an aspiration of ours that before we leave, we've made an impact. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, and thank you, Jay, on that note, for joining us on the Impact Code podcast. I think you've shared some incredible lessons, and I think your story in itself is inherently powerful. So I want to thank you for coming on to the Impact Co podcast, for being a part of our journey on episode 38. I hope that you have enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. Thanks so much, Tafa, and thanks for the conversation. And certainly, I'll have to go and brush up on my coffee knowledge and skills so that we can have that next chat about, coffee brewing and coffee.
with the coffee connoisseur, yeah. Coffee connoisseur. I look forward to that. And to you, our listeners, from Jayson and myself, we want to thank you for listening. We want to thank you for engaging with the platform. If you've enjoyed the platform, if you've enjoyed the podcast, please do share it with your circle to both inspire and educate them. And such is our purpose here at Impact Co. So from Jayson and myself, we want to say thank you very much, and goodbye, and take care.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.